And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we are talking about the Chicago Bulls giving Billy Donovan an extension. We're going to be talking about if this is the right move or a missed opportunity. And so, before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Monis Bazelis slam dunks in games. And so, in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. Make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And so if you have not got a chance to see this, this was the most recent breaking news around the Chicago Bulls, and that is that they have reached an extension with Billy Donovan, as you can see, a multi-year extension. And so this was reported by Shams of ESPN. If you want to read about this, certainly you can, and just type in this title and it'll take you over to that article. And so just to be clear, we don't know how many years is on the contract. We also don't know the numbers that are on the contract. And so that brings me to the next point here. And so before we jump into right move or missed opportunity, let's take a look at Billy Donovan and his tenure over the 5 seasons and the things that I think have gone well for the most part for Billy Donovan. And so I think that the first thing that Billy Donovan has done well is he's connected with the younger players. And I just look at what Modest Bazilla said last season and really thanking Billy Donovan for the way that he coached him up during his rookie season. And I think that this is something that we've heard with Billy Donovan is that he does, connect well with the younger players on the roster here. And so definitely it looks like that he gets through to them. And that's critical because when you're talking about developing your younger players, you need a head coach that is going to be able to get through to them and hopefully maximize their talent. And so the next thing with Billy Donovan is I think that he's handled himself well and coached, I think, as best he could so far with the roster that has been given to him. And so I start with the things that have gone wrong, in my opinion, with the front office and starting to take a look at what we talked about yesterday with this is a Chicago Bulls team that just did not make trades until this last season. I think it was like 3 straight seasons where they weren't making trades. And so the roster continued to be the same. And so we've talked about this before that they should have pivoted off of the roster that they had. I mean, there's no way that you would be able to play the style of play that they're playing now with DeMar DeRozan, with Vooch and Levine, and just the personnel that was on the team. It just wasn't meant to do this style that they're doing right now. And so the Bulls waited a long time to pivot off of that. The next thing I think that you have to give Billy Donovan credit for is that, he really had to deal with the fact that the Bulls decided to go ahead and build around Zach LaVine, and that didn't necessarily work. And so I think that Zach LaVine did all he could, but, he ran into injuries and things like that, and ultimately it didn't work. Again, this is something that Billy Donovan has no control over when it comes down to the franchise deciding to build around him. And then next, with Billy Donovan and the one successful season that he's had with the Chicago Bulls, it was really built on, Vooch and like Lonzo, especially. Like that is the key. Like Lonzo only played 35 games in that season in which they went to the playoffs and they eventually got eliminated. But, on top of that, he missed a couple seasons after that, and it just really wasn't the same. And so that kind of goes into point one. You just never really pivoted. And so I got to give Billy Donovan credit for going out there and trying to maximize really what he had, and then also to connecting with the younger players. And so that leads me to right move or missed opportunity. And so for me personally, I'm going to say it's a missed opportunity. And it's not that Billy Donovan is the worst coach in the NBA. It's not that at all. I think that he is, a solid coach. I mean, this is a guy that is going to be a Hall of Famer, and he coached very well at the University of Florida. He's won national championships there. And I think that you got to look at his time with the Thunder and say, look, he was successful there, regardless of how you feel about that and the roster that he had and everything else. He was successful there. But with the Bulls, it just hasn't been the case here, because you look at his seasons thus far, He's only had the one winning season. And then after that, you see that the record or the winning for his seasons have gone down. So from 46 down to 39 the last couple seasons. And so for me, one of the big things that you want to see with a roster when you're trying to rebuild it or retool it out is you want to see some growth. And we just haven't seen that. And I know, a lot of this can be tied to the front office, but the bottom line is, we just haven't been able to get over the hump. And so I think that when you're talking about a team that really needs to take it to the next level, I wonder, just do you reach a point in time where you've taken them as far as you can go and it's time to take a look at some other coaches? Because Billy Donovan is going to be the third longest tenured coach in the NBA. And when you look at the coaches that are ahead of him, you have Steve Kerr, and then you also have Eric Spoelstra. These guys have won NBA championships. And so, he's not there. And then when you look at the coaches that have been fired while he has been tenured with the Chicago Bulls, just to name a couple, I mean, you have Coach Bud, right? He's won an NBA championship with the Bucks, and so he's not employed, so he's fired. And then when you look at Coach Malone, he's no longer with the Denver Nuggets. He won a ring too with them, and so he's fired. And then, when we look at one of the coaches that was very successful here with the Chicago Bulls, and that is Coach Tibbs. Coach Tibbs just took the Knicks to the Eastern Conference Finals here, and he's just really brought this team back to relevance over there. And so he's fired. And so that's just to name a couple of coaches that are no longer employed or with their teams. And so I just wonder, to me, I'm saying it's a missed opportunity because I think that if you're trying to maybe take the team to a place that it hasn't gone before, you got to do something different. And that means do some things that you've never done. And that means that you might have to make a change at the head coaching position. And so nothing against Billy Donovan in that way, but I just think that, is he a great coach to take you to the next level? I'm not necessarily buying that. And I think that at times you maybe look at the adjustments out there during games, because I've talked about this last year that I felt like the Chicago Bulls really had a chance to run like bigger lineups out there at times. I would have liked to see like more of like a Vooch and a Zach Collins, or like a Vooch, Jalen Smith, or even Jalen Smith, Zach Collins, like just to see exactly what would happen. And so I just think that those type of adjustments, or the reluctancy to really go out there and try that stuff like that, I'm just thinking that if you're trying to get to the next level, you got to shake some things up. And so I just think that with this extension with the front office, and then also too at the head coaching position for the Bulls, you're just essentially saying that we're okay with where we're at. And I just think that that's not necessarily the right thinking. That's my personal opinion. And so I think it's a missed opportunity. I do hope that Billy Donovan is able to prove everybody wrong, and I hope that the front office ultimately is able to prove everybody wrong. But that's kind of where I'm at here. And so you guys let me know in the comments, are you thinking that the Bulls made the right move here with Billy Donovan, or do you feel like that this is a missed opportunity, especially with the coaches that are out there that currently are looking for teams? And so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.